And what are some of the learnings that places like Australia can learn from the Inflation Reduction Act?
Some countries, talk about the US now, but we've been involved into domestic content in a few other countries, Brazil, KSA lately, South Africa, which have different kind of schemes. But all of them, the common theme you see when you want it to work is really when the people, the policymakers have been working with local association, industry associations and the players to develop something that makes sense.
Well, Australia does have an established steel industry. What kind of short-term challenges do you see?
I would say you're right. The material is there, the availability is there. One of the big challenges right now is the cost structure. The source of most of the products getting into Australia are sources which are extremely competitive from Asia. And so it makes it hard to basically bridge the gap for the entire chain and basically continuing supporting the ROI on the developers and making sure the PPAs can afford the domestic content. That's the bigger one. Capacity is here, appetite is there, the quality, there's all the good things, but it's just the cost is right now what the things that are going to be the big challenge.
I imagine you could get to a point down the road where a very high percentage of the final steel, the final tracker product, is actually manufactured here in Australia, or at least sourced from here in Australia.
And that's actually the most exciting thing from our standpoint, because the US is not the case, but here you could actually have a full, like a real, true circularity from the mine to the production of your products, and looking 25, 30, 35 years, having the decommissioning and then bringing it back into the scrap and the recycling, so you really have the full cycle, which I can't think of any other countries in the solar side today that could have this beautiful circle.
How exciting do you think that is, this interrelation between green hydrogen, which you need for green iron production, the availability of iron ore that we have here in Australia, and also this great solar resource?
There's a huge play. There's a huge play for the Australian solar industry, but there's a huge play for the Australian market as an industry, because whatever we develop in Australia could basically be the birth or the beginning of something that could be then expanded across the globe. And we see the actors in the big players in the market on the mining side making huge investments, which are the right ones. And Australia has everything to be able to do it. And I really hope that we'll be able to do it. Not necessarily for the benefit of players like us, because we don't necessarily look for a specific benefit. It's just, again, to the very first question, incentivizing the domestic content. We can reduce carbon emissions, we just talked about that. We can improve the resilience of the supply chain by reducing the risk of logistics or sources of material that could come from a place which, who knows, there could be some policy changes. So there's a ton of reasons why it's beneficial, and especially with the very challenging but positive targets that the Australian government has put to themselves in terms of decarbonization.